Last week in Michigan politics, we're counting down to Election Day in this key battleground state with just over 1 month to go. With more pitches to voters from candidates this week and absentee ballots now going out to voters, we have the latest on the state of top races and what you need to know if you plan to vote by mail. Plus, many social media companies have been taking steps to secure accounts for teens using their platforms, but one state lawmaker is seeking to make those measures go a step further. Why he says it's just common sense. I'm Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on your side rundown. And we begin in Kent County. This past week, students in Grand Rapids had questions for the city's two candidates for mayor and got a chance to ask them at a forum through the Mayor's Youth Council. The questions asked touched on all sorts of topics, not just topics important to young people, but for many in the community. 13 on your side's Julia Gorman talked with some of those present about what was on their minds.
Would either of you support taking money out of the police department to fund the community in more direct ways?
High school senior Barrett Vernon was one of a group of students who questioned Grand Rapids mayoral candidates Sunita Lanier and David LeGrand as part of a forum hosted by the Mayoral Youth Council.
It kind of feels like the world's on fire right now and that we're not at the wheel and there's nothing we can do. Just being able to speak our minds here, make sure that we're heard, no uncertainty that we're being ignored, that our voices are being suppressed. I think that's why this is important.
The forum touched on after-school programs, plans for the city, school funding, and police.
A lot of the stuff that happens out in the community has a mental health component. A lot of stuff out in the community does not need an armed response.
If you have cameras, it helps people on both sides to be safe.
Shannon L. Harris is the executive director of Our Community's Children, which manages the council. She says while many of the kids in the room can't vote yet,
we have to figure out different ways for young people to be able to speak directly to their elected officials on issues of importance to them.
Other topics on the minds of our young people: addiction help, transportation, and homelessness.
Homelessness is something that I've experienced myself. We just want to see the progress that has been made continue.
And while an I voted sticker may not be right around the corner, they understand that day isn't far off.
Having the youth and younger generations still being involved in what's going on in their lives now, we might not see it as important, but in a few years it will be.
Grand Rapids city leaders say they're taking the next steps to fund the Acrisure Amphitheater project near the heart of downtown. The Grand Rapids City Commission has now approved millions of dollars from the recently passed hotel tax to help fund that project. $27.5 million in bonds would be used to cover initial costs and interest payments for that project. During a fiscal committee meeting this past week, Commissioner Kelsey Perdue explained how that process will work.
I have received concerns from constituents around the city paying for this project, and just want to note that the agreement is for us to bond out for this project, but that the debt service will be paid by the revenues gained from the actual operation of, in this case, the amphitheater.
Right now, construction is expected to be finished by spring of 2029. Michigan continues to be a focus for both Republicans and Democrats as major players from both parties visited this past week. Tuesday, Gwen Waltz spoke in Lansing as part of a reproductive freedom event. Wednesday, Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance spoke in Traverse City. And Saturday, Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz attended the University of Michigan football game in Ann Arbor. All of that as former President Donald Trump held a rally right here in West Michigan on Friday.
Jobs, 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 something that seems to be top of mind for many voters in the key Rust Belt battleground of Michigan. And with just over 1 month to go to Election Day, the issue of the economy is king. Hoping to tap into that topic in all-important West Michigan, former President Donald Trump traveling to Walker in an address centered around the economy.
And for generations, this state was the beating heart of American industry, and you gave the world General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, Dow Chemical.
A legacy he believes has now been tarnished by a downfall for the industry. Trump speaking in a panel production plant, also touching on issues of immigration.
We will close the border. We will stop the invasion. We will begin the largest deportation operation in American history, and we have no choice but to go.
Later laying out his economic vision, Trump honing in on what he believes would be possible solutions.
The centerpiece of my plan for a manufacturing renaissance will be a 15% made in America tax rate. You have to manufacture the product, otherwise you stay at 21%, which is okay too. But if you manufacture your product here, you drop all the way down to 15%, making it just about as compelling as there is in the world. Then I'm imposing tariffs on your competition from foreign countries, which would come in and take your businesses as soon as you built them.
Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign has pushed back on Trump's messaging, saying she is the one that can and should be trusted with the economy. Some Democrats, often pointing to things like the economic fallout spurred by the COVID-19 pandemic, and what they view as the poor containment of the virus from the Trump administration that led to its spread and its economic disasters. The state Democratic Party chair reacting preemptively Friday to Trump's visit, saying in a statement in part, quote, "At the end of the day, Trump will always serve himself and his interests, no matter how it affects anyone else." Thankfully, Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz are champions for the middle class who will take on bad actors gouging Michiganders and continue to bring back the jobs that Trump lost. With recent polls suggesting the gap may be narrowing between whom voters would trust on the issue of the economy if president, campaigns kicking their economic messages into high gear with less than 40 days to go until the votes are counted.
The November election is less than 40 days away, and absentee ballots are already going out this week in Michigan. Even though these ballots are already going out, eligible voters can still request theirs in the weeks ahead, and there are a few ways to do it. You can apply online at the Department of State's website, you can mail in a printed application, or you can request directly from your local clerk, either over the phone or in person at their office. If you apply for an absentee ballot by phone or mail, that needs to be done by 5 p.m. the Friday before the election. Depending on whether you are already registered at your current address or still need to register here in Michigan, you'll have until 4 p.m. the day before the election or up until 8 p.m. on election day, respectively. Another big thing for a lot of people is actually making sure that, one, it's on its way to you, and two, that it's been received by your clerk after you've sent it back. The state does allow you to track the status of your absentee ballot on its website as well. You'll go to the Your Voter Information page on that website to enter your name, birthday, and zip code, or you can do it by driver's license number. One West Michigan city is planning to put hundreds of thousands of dollars towards fighting housing issues. Coming up, what their plan is now to tackle this ongoing issue in their community. At the state capitol, a new bill is hoping to put guardrails in place and give parents a larger say in their kids' use of social media. We spoke with the person behind the bill and break down what's in it.
We know these are serious issues. The question is, how serious do we become in addressing these issues?
Those issues State Representative Mark Tisdale is hoping to tackle have to do with the amount of access those under the age of 18 have to social media. Here in Michigan, he believes the solution comes through increased parental oversight.
It's just common sense.
And recent concerns from parents seem to support his own. A National University of Michigan health poll from just last year showed the top child health concern among parents who answered was the overuse of devices and screen time, followed right behind by social media and internet safety.
If I came to you and said, I've got this great digital platform that will allow your 14-year-old daughter to communicate with men all over the world 24 hours a day without your knowledge, simply sign here. No one's going to go for that.
While many social media sites already require account holders to be over the age of 13, and as some have moved to safeguard teen accounts through things like cutting off other users' ability to message them if they're not already connected on the platform, and allowing teens to opt in to parents supervising their accounts, Tisdale is asking for more. Among the things his new bill calls for, requiring a parent or guardian to sign off on minors in Michigan having an account. The parent would receive a password or other access to that account and would be able to view posts and message responses, as well as set limits on the hours per day the minor can use it. Minors also would not be able to use those accounts between 10:30 at night and 6:30 in the morning.
That's all I'm asking, is that if ultimately the parents and legal guardians are going to be responsible for their child's outcomes, you give them the authority to impact those outcomes.
But whether the legislature will take up Tisdale's new bill this year is still an open question, with the end of the year approaching and other lawmakers already calling for the body to use these last few months to tackle separate issues.
I've had this referred to the Health Policy Committee, and if that chair is serious about this as a health issue, maybe we'll get something, some progress on this. If not, it's in the works. The language is there. It's a priority that I can carry over to the next term, and we'll take it from there.
The city of Portage is investing $500,000 to fight housing issues in Kalamazoo County. County officials say the goal is to provide safe temporary housing for those experiencing homelessness in the county. They want to build shelters and other affordable housing. A specific location has not been selected yet, but county officials are currently looking at buying property. Portage's city manager says solving homelessness requires everyone to work together.
The fact that there are many unhoused people in our communities is something that's going to take everybody being on board, not just the public sector, also the private sector, the fourth estate with the media. Everybody needs to pay attention and somehow find a way to correct this problem.
Kalamazoo County officials say the project will cost between $4 to $5 million. After an outbreak of foam appeared near the lakeshore this weekend, some were concerned that the presence of toxic forever chemicals could be growing in that area. Next, we bring you an update from this past week on testing after foam appeared in a popular West Michigan lake. The mayor of Muskegon is addressing concerns about PFAS foam on Muskegon Lake. Pictures were shared on social media of the foam this week. Mayor Ken Johnson says Grand Valley State University and the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy have been testing the water in that lake. He says the tests are below the EPA's PFAS standards and the water is safe.
The 2 to 3 parts per trillion that we have been identifying in our results are significantly below what the current EPA threshold is, which is 70 parts per trillion, and below the state's threshold of 16 parts per trillion. It's even below what is in the works, which is a 4 part per trillion threshold that the EPA is in the process of finalizing and implementing and rolling out over the next several years.
The mayor also says it's not clear what caused the increase in PFAS foam and wants more tests. The Department of Natural Resources is asking for input from the community to shape the future of Silver Lake State Park. The DNR is getting ready to complete their management plan, which comes after a busy summer that ended with some injuries and even deaths. 13 on your side's Callie Lichter spoke to the people behind the plan who say this doesn't affect just one area.
We're not looking at any kind of wholesale changes, so to speak. As you said, we're looking to enhance what we've got already.
Changes are coming to Silver Lake State Park.
It's really just refining some of those items and keeping up with our infrastructure and making sure everyone enjoys the park when they come out there.
The Michigan Department of Natural Resources management plan will look to improve the ORV area, create better access to the lighthouse, and develop hiking trails. The plan has been in the works since 2023 and helps shape the next 10 to 20 years of its future.
It's a big park. It's 3,000 acres. It's one of our older parks. Obviously, one of the things that a lot of people focus on is the ORV area because that is unique, but the park has a lot of other things to offer too.
Silver Lake's ORV area has been plagued by accidents and deaths this summer. Chief of Parks and Recreation Ron Olson says the timing of the plan is completely coincidental.
This is just part of the process that we go through, and the timing of it was just the time in the planning cycle, and the other things, this has nothing to do directly with that at all.
The changes to the park won't happen overnight. The DNR hopes community feedback will help preserve the park for the future.
It's definitely a long-range thing. People can't expect, instant change, I guess. We'll be working through a process to implement our recommendations.
A section of the Grand River running through West Michigan received the designation of Water Trail by the Michigan DNR Wednesday. But what does that actually mean for locals? The DNR defines a water trail as a designated route on a waterway that is managed to create outdoor recreation experiences for Michiganders. The water trail designation will allow for new funding opportunities from the government to enhance access and amenities along the riverbank. The stretch of river receiving the designation runs from Portland to Grand Haven, where it empties into Lake Michigan. This is the third and final stretch of the 252-mile-long Grand River to be designated a water trail. It's become a common theme in modern America for first ladies to have championed certain domestic issues they've hoped to combat during their spouse's term in the White House. When we come back, we look at a new exhibit that opened just this past week around Betty Ford's fight to raise awareness for a vicious and all too common form of cancer. A new exhibit is now open in Grand Rapids showcasing how Betty Ford helped bring awareness to breast cancer. It's called the Betty Blip, Betty Ford's Battle Against Breast Cancer, and can be found at the Ford Presidential Museum. This past week, we got a sneak peek inside the exhibit. Betty Ford went public with her diagnosis at a time when even the word breast was rarely used in conversation. She was diagnosed just 6 weeks into her husband's presidency. Her vocalization of her journey changed breast cancer awareness in the United States as the number of women who scheduled their own breast exams surged afterward. In the exhibit, you can see items like reprinted letters sent to Betty Ford and her family and a breast cancer beanie baby someone left to honor Betty at a memorial.
And so the fact that she chose to go public with her diagnosis and talk about it was really groundbreaking. The White House press secretary was releasing press releases describing her experiences, what her surgery would be like. Her surgeons were speaking to the press, and all of this was airing on the news. So the American public was learning more about breast cancer in real time as Betty experienced her diagnosis, her surgery, and her recovery.
The exhibit will continue to run until April 13th. And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com. We'll see you next week.